needs to hear this, but you don't create boundaries, you remember them. The line between discomfort and comfort, like what you're okay with and what you aren't okay with, already exists. You just have to learn to recognize it. People often go wrong in trying to set boundaries because they're attempting to create a boundary rather than remembering what their boundary is and enforcing that. Your limits already exist within you, and it'll feel a lot easier if they're rooted from deep within rather than something you're trying to convince yourself that you need to have. Example of this is like you're setting the boundary that I don't eat junk food. No longer eat junk food. That's my rule. That's my boundary. That's what I'm going to follow. And then 2 days goes by and you eat junk food, and then you feel like I can never stick to what I say I'm gonna do. I suck, whatever. Didn't work because you were creating a boundary that wasn't actually intuitively connected to your truth. Actual feelings that you can resonate with. I feel more calm, collected, and grounded when I feel myself well. Then when you go to set the boundary, it's rooted in how you actually feel and what you know as truth deep within you. The boundary naturally becomes something like, I limit junk food because I feel my best when I feel myself well. It's not a rule that you break. You could have a little bit here and there, but you're remembering the why, you're remembering the boundary and following it. And you'll be more likely to actually honor it because it's rooted in what you actually want and feeling what you actually want repeatedly. Like even though impulse might make you want to like spaz out and eat a bunch of junk food, you can always come back to it because it's not about setting a rule for yourself that feels like unattainable. It's about remembering how you actually feel and honoring it. It's not about becoming this different version of you that seems like far off and you always default into like old habits. It's about you becoming more you. You're not trying to become someone else. You're becoming more you. You're becoming more aligned with you. This is why I have failed so many times every time that I was trying to like create big change in my life. I would set such drastic change or drastic rules that I wanted to follow when I was motivated and when I was inspired, not realizing that what I was creating was outside of myself and distant. So it was harder to attain and I was more likely to fail because of how strict and drastic it was. When I told myself I'm gonna meditate every single day for 20 minutes no matter what, I was setting myself up for failure because that was a boundary that I had created that wasn't actually in tune with how I naturally worked and the why of why I wanted to do it. Miss a morning and then I would feel guilty, I would spiral, I would be like, oh, I can't ever stick to anything, and then the next morning I wouldn't get up and try it again. I would like lose the consistency because I was so strict and glorifying it. The actual boundary there, instead of creating it, I'm gonna meditate every single day for 20 minutes. If you were to remember it, would be I feel the most calm, connected, and myself when I have quiet time to myself regularly. Now, regularly meditating can take different forms. It doesn't have to be oming every morning in the same space. It could be journaling, taking a quiet moment to myself in the car after a hard day, anything like that. It creates so much more room for me to get what I actually need from the boundary because I'm not trying to make it something so grand and strip all of the possibility out of it. And that takes the whole purpose out of it. If you make it so strict, like then you can't even associate it with fun and good feelings and vibes if you're just beating yourself up for having to show up and having to try. That's how I started getting into the gym consistently. It was like my only rule is that like I'm not going to go 2 to 3 days without going. And that might seem like a rule that I created, but it was intuitive to me because it was like I don't have to go hard. It doesn't have to be extreme. All I have to do is show up. That habit, that boundary became truth for me because it was rooted in my why. My why was like, I am a gym person. I am a person who shows up for myself and moves my body regularly. It doesn't have to be every single day. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I show up and that's that. Boundaries aren't something that you create. They are something that you remember. When you take on that perspective, you feel more aligned with your true self than you ever have before, and you're more able to see boundaries as something that is like a return to yourself, a return to your baseline, rather than reaching for something that just feels like it's always out of grasp.